Hey, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm covering the upcoming season for the Penn State Nittany Lions. The Penn State Nittany Lions, before 2022, had a couple of down years in 2020 and 2021. 2020 was a shortened year for the Big Ten because of the COVID pandemic that happened. That started that year, or at the very least, started in late 2019, and then rose to its climax in 2020. Um, that year was not good for them. I think they had their first official losing record under James Franklin. They 4-5. Lost to Indiana the very first game of the year. It was not a good year for them. And then the very next year they were a mediocre 7-16. So they had a couple of bad seasons under James Franklin. And James Franklin is one of the most respected coaches in the nation. Um, he Before he coached at Penn State, he was the Vanderbilt head coach, and he actually averaged uh 8 wins a year at Vanderbilt. Like there was actually a couple of seasons at Vanderbilt where he actually got them to a 9-4 record, and for Vanderbilt, going 9-4 is almost as good as winning your conference division. By Vanderbilt standards, 9-4 is very good for them. And then that's when Penn State brought James Franklin to University Park. He's won a Big Ten title underneath them. He's won some New Year's Six bowl games underneath them. But the 2020 and 2021 they took a little bit of a downturn. But last year they turned it around nicely. In 2022, they beat Purdue in what was a surprisingly close back and forth game. I did not expect Purdue to give Penn State the trouble that they did in that game, but Penn State still won 35-31. Then they blew out the Ohio Bobcats. Then they went on the road and dominated the Auburn Tigers 41-12. I mean, I know Auburn wasn't that good of a team last year, but to still go on the road against an opponent that you're not that familiar with because you play in different conferences, to me is still impressive. They went on there and just absolutely dominated Auburn 41-12. Beat Central Michigan 33-14. Had a struggle game against Northwestern 17-7, and then they had their bye week. Played against Michigan and then lost handedly 41-17. Michigan dominated them from start to finish. They took their frustrations out on Minnesota 45-17. Then they lost to Ohio State 44-31. And then the final 4 games of the regular season to me is when they hit their best stretch of football. Really, they hit the best stretch of football the entire year because they ended their year on a 5-game winning streak, beating Indiana 45-14, Maryland 30-0, Rutgers 55-10, and then Michigan State 35-16. They beat um, their opponents by an average of 31 points their final 4 games of the regular season. They outscored their regular season opponents 165-40 the final 4 games of the year. That is playing dominant football. Playing that is playing an equal balance on offense, defense, special teams. James Franklin had the Nittany Lions rolling towards that year, and then they rewarded themselves with a Rose Bowl appearance and beat Utah, who won the Pac-12 last year, and Penn State won the Rose Bowl. It was a good year all around for Penn State, considering they had two back-to-back bad seasons under James Franklin. 4-5 and then 7-6 to come back and become 11-2 and win a Rose Bowl, and your only two losses were to Michigan and Ohio State, who were both in the college football playoffs. That shows how good of a team they were last year. This year, here's a schedule right here. They start off with West Virginia, and West Virginia is one of the Penn State's top rivals. There's really not really I don't really say like a big rival for Penn State in the Big Ten that you know about. Mainly, I think the two biggest rivalries that Penn State has are outside the Big Ten and uh, West Virginia and Pittsburgh. Those are Penn State's two biggest rivals. West Virginia and Pittsburgh, who also happen to hate each other as well. The backyard brawl, which hopefully one day it'll come back as an annual rivalry again, like it used to. I like that college football is evolving, but I think traditional rivalries should be protected. Just to maintain familiarity with college football fans the of yesteryear and of previous generations, along with the newer, modern generation of college football fans. And West Virginia will be on the road at Penn State. West Virginia has been a bad program under Neil Brown for a couple of years now. I think Penn State should beat West Virginia. They should also beat Delaware. They'll be on the road at Illinois. I think they should win that one. Illinois is a little bit improved under their head coach Brett Bielema, who has coached in the Big Ten before, coached at Wisconsin, won a couple of Big Ten titles. Couldn't replicate that success at Arkansas, but in terms of being a Big Ten Midwestern coach, Brett Bielema has proven to be valuable in building a program. Then after Illinois, I think they should win that one. They're gonna be at home against Iowa. Iowa, tough defense, but they are way behind in college football in terms of offensive philosophy. They've been that way under Kirk Ferentz for over 20 years. I don't see any reason for that to be any different. I think Penn State should beat Iowa at home. Then they're on the road at Northwestern. I think Penn State should win that one. So right now I have Penn State at 5-0 before their bye week. And I think and you should be excited if you are a Penn State fan for that. Then they have their bye week, and then they come back home against the UMass Minutemen. The UMass Minutemen have to be the worst FBS program in college football today. I looked this up, and when I looked this up, I couldn't believe it at first. I almost had to reread this 3 or 4 times just to make sure I wasn't misreading anything. The UMass Minutemen have had three 1-11 records in the last 4 years. 1-11 2019, 1-11 2021, 1-11 in 2022. The Kansas Jayhawks, through the bad decade that they had last in the previous throughout the bad 2010s decade that they had, from Turner Gill to Charlie Weiss to David Beatty to Les Miles, they were never bad enough to have three 1-11 records in 4 years. They had a couple of winless seasons. You know, David Beatty was winless in his first year at Kansas, and then Les Miles was winless in his last year at Kansas in the COVID year. But still, 1-11 in what 3 1-11 seasons in 4 years is awful. That's absolutely terrible. The UMass Minutemen, there's no reason why anybody should think UMass could beat Penn State. That's going to be another win. So I have Penn State going 6-0 on the road at Ohio State. I'm going to say this is a loss here for Penn State. Not because I don't think they're a good team, but because playing on the road at Ohio State, who uh, plays great offensive football. They've become one of the most dynamic passing teams in college football. Certainly in the Big Ten, they produce NFL wide receivers like it's nobody's business. They went from Jameson Williams to Chris Olave to Jackson and Jigba Smith to now it's Marvin Harrison Jr. and they were able to transition and not miss a beat. So I have and they apparently are going to have. It looks like they're going to have Jeremiah Smith, a five-star wide receiver, heading to Ohio State as well. So their wide receiver coach Brian Hartline, he's probably the best wide receiver coach in the nation today. Certainly the best wide receiver recruiter in the nation today. I have Penn State losing on the road at Ohio State. I think it's just a tough matchup to go on the road for Penn State to beat Penn State, go on the road into the horseshoe and beat Ohio State. I have Ohio State winning that game. Then I think they're going to bounce back with a couple of wins against Indiana and Maryland. And then they're at home against Michigan. And I think at this point, if you're a Penn State fan, this would probably be this is in the summer, but I think this would probably be your last possible chance of possibly going into the Big Ten championship game. They're going to be at home against Michigan. Michigan is rolling right now. Jim Harbaugh took them a few years to get things going in Ann Arbor. First 6 years he was there, no Big Ten appearances, was winless against Ohio State, had a losing record to Michigan State. Well, the last couple of years, he's beaten Ohio State twice. He's won the Big Ten twice, and he's made the college football playoff twice. So right now, Michigan is rolling underneath him, but they're going to be on the road at Penn State. And I think in a big game with home field advantage for Penn State, I'm going to take a gamble here, and I'm going to say they beat the Michigan Wolverines. It's a big gamble, but I think Penn State's a pretty good team this year. And then I think they're gonna finish off their final year with a couple of wins. So I'm gonna take a chance here, and I'm gonna say Penn State goes 11-1. Now, Is that good enough to win the Big Ten East and be in the Big Ten championship game? Possibly. I mean, Michigan lost to Michigan State in 2021, who then lost to Ohio State, and then Michigan beat Ohio State to win the Big Ten East title and to play in the Big Ten championship before winning it. So I'm gonna say 11-1 record for Penn State. I'm a fan of James Franklin. I'm a fan of the direction that they're heading underneath him. He's one of the best coaches in the nation, and I think he proves it this year with an 11-1 record.